This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My head hurts and my throat is dry. I slowly open my eyes. Is this the hotel from last night? Suddenly, my fingers touch something slippery and I realize there's a long-haired woman lying next to me. At that moment, she turns over. I can't help but let out a low cry. It's my boss's daughter, Hailey. At this moment, memories of last night come rushing back like a tidal wave. After tracking the project for over a month, it finally won. Hailey and I returned to the hotel to celebrate this big victory. As her subordinate, I raised my glass again and again. By the time we were tipsy, I gazed at the beauty before me, but a wave of bitterness rose in my heart. Recalling the past year, it felt like a nightmare that still hadn't ended. A year ago, I rushed home only to find my parents' bodies from suicide and the towering debts they left behind. I experienced the sharp rise and fall from being a spoiled child to an orphan, from a rich young man to a regular worker. Tonight, I needed this alcohol to numb myself, to stop the emotions that kept flooding in. One glass after another, I remember talking a lot with Hailey. She thanked me, called me a fool, said she needed to prove herself. She said other things, but I forgot. All I remember was her smiling like a blooming flower, completely unlike her usual serious self. Then came a dream of endless spring. In the dream, we entangled, repeating our passionate union again and again. Hailey's soft moan interrupted my memories. I quickly lay back down, pretending not to have woken up. Silence. I don't know how long it passed. Half an hour? Or just a few minutes? I didn't open my eyes. I wasn't ready to face Hailey's gaze just yet. Do you plan to keep pretending to sleep? Her usual cold voice reached my ears. Looking at Hailey now dressed in a black suit, I felt a bit awkward. Though I had had one-night stands before, back then, it was usually easy and without emotional baggage. But this time, it's different. I awkwardly smiled. Hailey, this was an accident. No, this must be because we drank too much last night. I stammered, unsure of what to say. Hailey said nothing, just quietly looked at me. There was no blame, no anger, no disgust, just some disappointment. Suddenly, I saw a trace of red on the bed. My head buzzed. Hailey, I'm sorry. I'll take responsibility. How will you take responsibility? Her voice was still cool. I'll marry you. The words slipped out. Hailey, this was my fault. If you don't mind, I still want to marry you, take care of you, and make up for my mistake. Make up for your mistake? Marry me? Do you even like me? A soul-searching question. Do I like her? Of course. Hailey is the most special woman I've met this year. Beautiful, eloquent, and most importantly, hardworking, determined, and serious. She's completely different from the girls in my previous circle. I've long admired her in my heart. Yes, I looked Hailey in the eyes, and the words came out. Then you did this on purpose? I was speechless, not able to follow her logic. Is this cause and effect? Rocky, listen up. I'm giving you two choices. I still have a choice. First, we call the police and let them decide the cause and responsibility. This is my room, so you better think carefully about what you'll say to the cops. Second, you can be my man, but not you marrying me. It's me marrying you. I'll marry you. The words echoed in my head several times. Looking up, Hailey was quietly watching me, with a hint of mischievousness in her eyes. Call the police? I can't explain this clearly. After all, as a man, no one would believe I'm at fault. Not taking responsibility and running away, that's not something a man does. After all I've been through, I know how to endure. So at this moment, I said 3 words, I agree, just to get past this situation. Maybe I was mistaken, but I thought I saw a smirk of triumph at the corner of Hailey's eyes. Hurry up and get dressed. Do you think anyone cares to look at your abs? I quickly dressed, and Hailey awkwardly folded the dyed sheet into her suitcase. To be honest, what happened next completely threw my ability to think out the window. Hailey was full of energy, nothing like a girl who just lost her innocence, though the red stain from the bed still lingered in my mind. We returned to our city, where Hailey dragged me to my rented place. She took the household registration book, and our next stop was the Civil Affairs Bureau. Click, a photo was taken. Click, a steel stamp fell. I got married. I got married? At this moment, I suddenly wondered why Hailey had brought her household registration book on the business trip. Of course, I didn't ask her this awkward question. Now, I seriously suspect I might have been tricked. Hailey took me home and told her parents, my boss, I'm married. This is my husband. The house immediately turned into chaos. Hailey's father dropped his cup, and her mother screamed loudly. It was exactly what I had expected. Hailey pulled me over, sitting on the sofa, happily watching the scene unfold. Later, Hailey was taken upstairs by my boss and his wife. I sat awkwardly in the living room, waiting for what felt like forever. The 3 of them finally came down. There was no fiery anger as I expected, and of course, no harmonious family vibes. Hailey's father, with a serious expression, spoke to me. Rocky, I respect Hailey's decision. Although this situation is sudden and hard for me to accept, Hailey is an adult, and she has the right to make her own choices. She's also willing to bear the consequences. I trust my daughter. Rocky, I have 3 requests. First, be sincere about this marriage and don't make any mistakes. Second, respect Hailey. Don't hurt her or make her sad. Third, although you're joining my family, Hailey's family doesn't support freeloaders. I hope you can support yourself. That's all. You two must be tired. So Hailey's mom and I will leave now. It was from that day that I officially moved into Hailey's home and became part of her family, the legitimate son-in-law. To be honest, at first, I didn't feel that joining her family had any significant impact on me. At home, Hailey and I were neither too close nor distant, respectful of each other. At the office, Hailey was still my boss. I went to work as usual. I didn't become some arrogant man just because I moved up the social ladder. The only issue was that Hailey said I had to hand over my salary, so I wouldn't be tempted by other women. Does being handsome mean I can't stay loyal? Does being broke mean I can't be tempted? Of course, these thoughts were just internal complaints. Unfortunately, while Hailey was worried I wouldn't stray, her admirers had long since decided to challenge me. Hailey, is this the man you've chosen as your son-in-law? That morning, just as I was about to go out with Hailey, an ear-piercing voice interrupted us. I sighed helplessly, this being the latest wave of interruptions this month. Since my parents had passed away just a year ago, Hailey had promised not to have a wedding for the time being. However, news of our marriage spread gradually, leading to many of Hailey's former suitors showing up like swarms of flies. Some cried as if they had lost their parents, others poured their hearts out with sincere feelings, while some immediately tried to give me a hard time. I stayed silent. Based on past experience, Hailey would usually take the lead and drive away these annoying flies, while I could stand proudly behind her, eating the soft rice, looking down at her rivals. Sure enough, Tony, stop it. I've already married, Hailey said firmly. Ha ha ha, Hailey. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be with me, but to find a guy like this, isn't that a slap in my face? Curious, I turned to look back. This Tony guy had a decent face, but was barely 5 feet 2 inches, his eyes staring skyward, hair slicked back, wearing a white flashy suit. His hands were in his pockets, looking like a typical jerk. Tony, when did I ever get with you? I've said before, I don't like guys like you. Please stop causing trouble, or I'll call the police. Ha ha ha, call the police? As if you can do anything to me. Hailey, I'm here to tell you, if I can't have you, I'll destroy you. You, your family, and that thing behind you. You're all finished. No, I want you to suffer even more. Hailey's face darkened with anger. Tony, I hope you can be more rational, even if your uncle dotes on you. If you threaten others like this, calling the police won't end well for you. I stepped forward, about to intervene, but that guy started running his mouth again. Ha ha ha. Hailey, you have no idea who you're dealing with. Don't worry, you'll regret this one day. When you beg me, maybe I'll give you the chance to climb into my bed. I'll show you what a real man is like, not this useless wimp. Hailey, still angry? It won't help. I'm just giving you a little advice, a warning. Your Hailey family is just a small joke here. I'll give you a chance, but will you dare take it? Damn, little lady, I'm waiting for you to beg me. Anger surged through me. Dealing with this kind of brash thug was pointless with words. I lunged at him with a punch. What? I missed? I saw Tony, the spoiled brat, crouch down, arching his back like a shrimp. Before I could be surprised at his quick reaction, I saw Hailey start hitting him on the head with her bag. The sound of thud made me sweat, imagining the bottles and jars inside her bag. I quickly switched roles, saying, Hailey, enough. Hailey turned around. Her fiery eyes met mine, and I quickly changed my words. I'll handle this kind of rough work. As soon as I finished speaking, I lifted my big foot and kicked Tony in the face twice. Hailey nodded in satisfaction, still not satisfied, using the sharp heel of her stiletto to kick Tony's thigh, followed by several more kicks. Stop, I was wrong. Tony's voice became weak, but his tone was high-pitched, and I couldn't help but feel annoyed at his shrimp-like pose. Tony, do you really think you're the CEO in a novel? Every time you talk, you go ha ha ha. I've tolerated your sissy attitude long enough. If you show up in front of me again, I'll hit you every time. Hailey said, turning on her heel and walking away without waiting for a reply. I stood stunned, watching her graceful figure, my heart full of mixed emotions. I could only quickly catch up with her. Hailey's family is a well-connected local family. There aren't many people bold enough to come to our doorstep, and after seeing Hailey's swift kicks, no one showed up again. Hailey believed that these things happened because we didn't have a wedding to inform everyone. Although the formal ceremony was postponed, I, as her husband, still needed to show up in front of everyone everyone. I wasn't too keen on this social event, but since it was brought up, I couldn't refuse. Hailey mischievously said, "Next month, there will be an opportunity." Hailey's family has an elderly ancestor, her great-grandmother, who will celebrate her 99th birthday next month. Her father is the head of the family and a prominent figure in the city, so the celebration will be grand. A variety of distant relatives gathered, no matter how remote the connections were. Even people who couldn't be traced back even 18 generations were present. 99 tables spread across 3 floors of the hall, and when Hailey walked in with me, we instantly became the center of attention, with all sorts of curious voices surrounding us. Hailey immediately ran ahead, pulling me along, and handed over the gift I had prepared, an antique hairpin that my mother had always liked. At this moment, just as expected, a discordant voice broke through the crowd. "So this is the son-in-law you've been hiding from us?" A slightly sharp voice came from the crowd. "What kind of gift is this? If you can't afford it, don't give it. Does the old lady need this junk?" "Big cousin, you don't understand. This is an antique from the Qing dynasty," Hailey quickly defended. "Hailey, this guy? Don't let yourself be fooled by both looks and money. He's just a worker in Hailey's family. How could he afford an antique?" That voice was familiar. It sounded like a vice president from my company who had been pursuing Hailey. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Does he want to be the son-in-law instead of me? Too bad he doesn't have the looks. That's his fatal flaw. This is a real antique. Hailey had me check it out. Hailey's second uncle, the most educated member of the family and the owner of a pawn shop, came to our defense. "How could this be? He's just a son-in-law?" The voice was incredulous. "How? You doubt my expertise?" With that, the crowd fell silent. Hailey gave her second uncle a sly glance. I couldn't help but be amazed. It seemed Hailey knew the hairpin wasn't valuable enough and expected some ridicule toward me. So, she had prepared in advance and asked her second uncle to step in and settle things. I smiled. Hailey's second uncle probably hadn't even looked at the actual piece. The hairpin wasn't from the Qing dynasty, but from the Ming dynasty, bought almost 2 million yuan years ago. Its current value, after nearly 20 years, I wasn't sure. If it wasn't for me being the legal representative of my parents' subsidiary, with debts leading to a frozen account, large sums would have been forcibly confiscated, and I might not even own this hairpin anymore. The old lady really doted on Hailey, but didn't seem very fond of me. "Rocky, right? As a son-in-law, your main responsibility is to quickly give us a grandchild. How come there's still no progress? With today's medical advancements, if there's an issue, you should get checked out." Her tone was a bit cold, with a hint of reproach. Laughter rippled around us, but I was calm. After all, I knew my own body. I'm lucky if I have intimacy once every 3 months. The odds of conception are pretty low. "Great-grandmother, I'm already trying," Hailey whispered, only for us to hear. The old lady laughed heartily and was no longer cold toward me. I was a little stunned. Didn't expect to become a father so quickly. But when I finally found a chance to ask Hailey, she resumed her usual calm demeanor and said that I still needed to work harder. I fell silent. "Hailey, you've got to give me a chance if I'm going to try," I said quietly. "A chance? Let's go on a honeymoon trip. I'll decide if you earn a reward after seeing how you behave." Caught off guard, my heart leapt in joy. As the car started, I felt like an inexperienced, lovesick rookie. The honeymoon was set, but it turned out to be a 4-person trip with Hailey's parents joining us. I could only offer an awkward smile, trying to be polite. Before the trip, we couldn't skip a big shopping spree. Hailey dragged me, along with her parents, to the city's largest mall. The city was a growing one. Though thriving, it had an obvious nouveau riche vibe. Prices for everything, clothing, food, and living, were high, but the brands were quite average. I followed the 3 of them, loaded with shopping bags, my steps a little unsteady. Looking up, I realized we had walked into a luggage store. The display had a strong British flair, but some obvious mistakes made me cringe. "Hailey's father, you're here?" I heard the staff member address my father-in-law like a regular customer. "We just received the latest models from the UK. We've saved some for you." I turned to see a young woman in her 20s, pointing at a trolley suitcase while seductively striking poses for Hailey's father. I looked at the price tag, 99,999.99, with 99.99, 99-inch GBP written below. Hailey's father, unfazed, said, "I'll take 3. "Dad, why 3? There are only 4 of us," Hailey said. Before he could respond, my mother-in-law's sharp voice cut in. "Why does he need such expensive luggage? He doesn't even have many clothes. It's so extravagant, he won't use it." I saw the staff trying hard not to laugh, and I felt a wave of annoyance. "You don't want it, I'll buy it," Hailey said, fuming. Don't. I don't want it. It looks fake." I whispered to Hailey, "Sir, we are an official store. Everything's airlifted from the UK. Please don't say things you don't understand." The young woman came over, her expression unfriendly. I helplessly glanced at Hailey, who looked puzzled. Seriously? First, this brand doesn't have a presence in China, and you couldn't have the authorization. Second, this brand doesn't make trolley suitcases, only carry-on leather ones, which they claim is a noble look. I bet this one is a copy from a leather factory in Jiangnan. I stared at the woman, who seemed ready to explode, and added, I suggest you stay calm. Go ask your boss. If I'm wrong, we can contact 315 to confirm. Perhaps my tone was too serious because the young woman hurried off to report. Hailey looked at me in confusion. I studied this a bit when I was at Cambridge, I explained. Hailey rolled her eyes at me and stopped talking. Look at that. No one believes the truth. Hailey's father and mother looked at me with calm expressions, wanting to scold me but holding back. Soon, the salesperson returned, looking incredulous. Sir, our boss wants to befriend you. Here's a 5,000 yuan gift card. Please accept it, she said softly. Our boss hopes you won't make a fuss. This is our mistake, and we'll proceed with the authorization process soon. No need, I replied. I don't need your products. I can't afford them anyway. With that, Hailey and I left the store, bags in tow. As for my mother-in-law wanting a refund, that was no longer my concern. The little incident didn't spoil the mood, and the trip was enjoyable. Hailey didn't make me sleep on the couch, and I had my chance to try. After the trip, I was exhausted. I planned to rest over the weekend, but then I found out we were invited to a dinner. Hailey and I reluctantly joined her parents. Hailey's family had a tradition of gathering for dinner on the first Saturday of every month. Hailey had managed to dodge the last two, but this time, her father had already arranged it, so we had no choice. 2 large tables, one for the elders and one for the younger generation. Hailey always sat at the head of the younger group, so I sat next to her. The gathering was mostly about the older generation's small talk, boasting, and competing. Hailey, you're pregnant now, but your belly doesn't show any signs. Is everything okay? I recognized the voice. It was my cousin-in-law who had caused trouble at the birthday party. Big cousin, you don't understand. Hailey's body is slim, so it's not obvious at first. A young boy, around 13 or 14, said with a mischievous grin, Mind your own business, little brat. Go play with your iPad. Hailey, have you decided on a name? I've thought of one, Rocky, Hailey said, looking helpless. The big cousin's eyes lit up instantly. Uncle, Hailey's child will have Rocky's surname, not Hailey's? The room fell silent in an instant. Hailey's father's face turned beet red. What are you talking about? Our family doesn't give the son-in-law surname. My mother-in-law screamed, but Hailey just said. Before the big cousin could fan the flames further, her mother dragged her away. The rest of the dinner was awkwardly quiet, with hardly anyone speaking. It was then that I realized there's such a rule for son-in-laws. Normally, a 2 to 3 hour meal would pass quickly, but today it was over in half an hour. When we returned home, Hailey's parents were so angry they could have squeezed water from their faces. Hailey, the child must take Hailey's surname. If you don't agree, this man needs to leave my house. Hailey's father exploded without letting my mother-in-law speak. Rocky, we're feeding you, giving you a place to stay, but you need to know your place, my mother-in-law added. The two of them yelled together, saying I was ungrateful and Hailey was confused. I couldn't help but think back to when my parents were alive, how they had talked about the family line being carried on by a grandson. They had hoped to see their grandchild. Rocky, I'm talking to you. Don't think just because you've got Hailey fooled, you can forget who you are. My mother-in-law didn't stop shouting. Enough. Stop it. Hailey suddenly stood up and shouted. Tears filled Hailey's eyes, her face showing hurt and disbelief as she looked at us. I was shocked. Why was Hailey so upset? Hailey, it's okay. Before I could finish my sentence, Hailey suddenly collapsed. Fortunately, I was nearby and caught her in time. Nearby, there was a large tertiary hospital, so we quickly took Hailey to the VIP International Wing. After a thorough examination, the doctor found that Hailey was anemic, which, combined with her emotional agitation, may have caused her fainting. A comprehensive blood test was done, including HCG levels, which confirmed that Hailey was indeed pregnant. It seemed that due to her body's condition, she was experiencing anemia early in the pregnancy. When Hailey finally woke up, it was already past midnight. Her mother was dozing on the couch beside the hospital bed. Hailey, have some water, I said softly, helping her sit up. Hailey, are you feeling any better? At that moment, her mother, always quick to make a fuss, also woke up. Hailey, you have to be careful now that you're pregnant. It's too dangerous. It's all Rocky's fault. He doesn't know how to take care of you at all. Hailey, is there anything you feel like eating? Mommy will make it for you. Hailey gently told her mother that I could take care of her, so she could go home and rest. Her mother wanted to say something more, but seeing that Hailey didn't seem interested, she left reluctantly, casting me a sharp look and telling me to take good care of Hailey. I looked at Hailey's tightly furrowed brow, showing no sign of relief, and I grew curious. I quickly tried tried to reassure her. Hailey, don't worry. Don't stress over the family name. We don't have to rush on that. You need to focus on your health right now. Hailey gave me a faint smile, mentioning that her parents hoped to have their own grandchild and could have another with my last name in the future. Barely finishing her sentence, she once again furrowed her brows deeply. I gently asked if there was something else on her mind, sensing that this issue wasn't the main cause of her serious expression. Hailey shook her head, saying she was just tired and wanted to sleep a bit more, urging me to rest as well. Everyone has their own thoughts, and even the closest people should allow each other some space. I didn't say more, gently tucked Hailey in and lay back on the couch, closing my eyes. In the early hours, I was awoken by the sound of soft sobs. Looking over, I saw Hailey leaning against the bed, her face buried in the blanket, her shoulders shaking with each sob. I walked over and stroked her hair, realizing something must have happened that I didn't know about. After a long time, Hailey regained her composure and began to tell me the story. It turned out that on the way back from the hotel, Hailey had received 3 photos from a competitor. The photos showed her father with a young girl dressed in a Japanese school uniform. One picture was taken at a cafe, and the other 2 were on a bed with them undressed. Attached was a note. Dear Hailey, these photos were taken by a friend. I can't believe that your father would do something like this with a schoolgirl. There must be some misunderstanding, right? Don't worry, I'll handle it for you. After all, in business, we help each other out. I let out a cold laugh. Nowadays, competitors would resort to anything. Hailey's father had mostly retired and was preparing to leverage his recent business successes to make a move in the political arena. Your enemies know you best. This kind of exposure could be devastating. Just look at other recent scandals. Rocky, do you understand? I was prepared for any form of attack from competitors, but I never thought my father would do something like this. He's always been upright. We've never even heard rumors of a mistress, but now these photos make me feel I can't even face him. If my mom finds out, she'll definitely divorce him. That's her bottom line. I looked at Hailey, who was crying softly, remembering her usual confident and graceful self, and a wave of heartache washed over me. I listened quietly as Hailey spoke in broken sentences. Holding her close, I understood that what she needed now wasn't a solution, but peace of mind. Hailey leaned on my shoulder and eventually fell asleep. Then her phone screen lit up with a notification. Glancing at it, a surge of anger rose within me. It was a message from that same competitor. Niece, Uncle is still waiting for your response. Lots of people would love to hear the story of your upright father. This was nothing short of merciless. Wiping the tears from Hailey's face, I knew her health couldn't handle this kind of pressure. If she met with this person and got agitated, it could have serious consequences. I picked up Hailey's phone and replied to the message. I'll come to your office at 11 this morning. Then I deleted both messages. Hailey needed rest. I'd take care of things from here. Since my parents' unexpected passing, I'd thought I was too crushed to stand on my own. But wasn't that just another form of escape? When they were alive, I could enjoy my life as I pleased. Once they were gone, I couldn't face reality at all. Today, Hailey is my wife, and we're expecting a child. Right now, she needs someone to share her burdens. In the morning, Hailey's mother came by. Her father, saying he was busy, didn't come, probably because he'd also seen the message and didn't dare face his family. Hailey urged me to rest, but instead, I took a cab to the office of Uncle Wong. Before coming, I'd researched this competitor and found that he was none other than Tony's father, the son-in-law of Tony's great-aunt, a similar status to mine. Uncle Wong had a decent reputation in the industry, and he'd built a large company on his own, largely unaided by Tony's family. This move was likely motivated not only by business, but by a desire to defend his son's honor. When his tall, slender secretary led me into the smoke-filled office, I saw a lean, wiry, middle-aged man. What, Hailey couldn't come herself? I know who you are, her live-in son-in-law, right? What are you doing here? I pulled up a chair and sat down casually, looking at the annoyed Boss Peter. Boss Peter, are you aware that severe cases of defamation can lead to up to 3 years in prison, detention, restriction, or revocation of political rights? Heh, kid, who do you think you're kidding? This isn't something you can handle. Let Hailey come to me. Boss Peter, I get the business tactics, but this method is a bit lacking in subtlety. Hailey's father's bedroom photos are clearly doctored. In court, they wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. Young man, you can say it's fake all you want, but there will always be people who believe it's real, said the smug-looking Peter, staring back at me. I didn't say anything more. I pulled out my laptop, turned the screen toward him, and showed him a photo of Tony with a much older woman, both looking cozy. The detail was excellent. Tony's expression was unmissable. I smiled faintly, watching his face turn red with anger. Of course, my my photo was fake. Tony frequently topped local tabloid headlines, making his photos easy to find. Boss Peter, let's be upfront. I can make as many photos as needed of Tony, of you, anyone. I snapped a picture of Peter, laughing. Boss Peter, give me 10 minutes and I could have you in bed with a star. The secretary was about to intervene, but Peter stopped her, his expression gradually calming. Back in the day, I'd been a Photoshop champion, and with today's face swap apps, this was a breeze. When I finally showed him a doctored photo of him with a famous adult film star, Boss Peter's face showed genuine alarm. Damn kid, you're something else. Peter stared at the screen, eyes unblinking. You know I paid 200,000 yuan for those photos of Hailey's father, right? I knew they were fake, but I thought they were worth it. But your work is seamless. If I hadn't seen it myself, I'd wonder if I'd actually slept with that star. Peter's rogue persona was on full display now. Get out. I admit defeat this time. Damn it, bad advice from that spoiled brat. Just as I was leaving with the secretary, Peter handed me a business card. You've got serious skills, not just your editing but your guts. If you ever want a change of scenery, come find me. And don't hold back with that little punk Tony if he causes you trouble again. Let him learn a lesson. It might save him from bigger problems later. In that moment, Peter, once a kingpin, looked a bit lost. I nodded politely, said nothing, and left his office. Outside, I spotted a familiar car. I walked over, opened the side door, and found Hailey's father sitting inside, looking distraught. Dad, let's go to the hospital too. See, Hailey, it's all sorted here, I said. Hailey's father looked at me, surprised. I briefly recounted what had just happened upstairs, and Hailey's father's reaction was priceless. Dad, I have to say, you've led an upright life for so long. How could you make a mistake like this and let someone catch a weak point? Hailey fainted yesterday precisely because that guy upstairs sent her those fake photos. This time it's fake, but if they actually catch you in the future, your reputation will be in real trouble. Hailey's father's face turned a mix of blue and red as he looked at me, at a loss for words. In fact, men are like this. When something like this happens, gentle persuasion is often counterproductive. This blunt, casual talk can actually close the distance and solve the issue better. I never realized you had so many tricks up your sleeve, kid. Looking at his smug face, I felt a bit frustrated, but what can I say? After all, he's Hailey's father. After I repeatedly promised confidentiality and assured him I'd make sure Hailey didn't pursue the matter, my shaken father-in-law finally calmed down. When I first saw those photos on Hailey's phone, I almost believed them. Later, after analyzing the images on my computer, I saw that the photos were expertly doctored. If it hadn't been for all three images sent together, I might not have figured it out. The photos cleverly painted a picture of Hailey's father supporting a student, and Hailey's father, already hiding secrets, didn't even dare to explain. It's true, only when free from desire can one be truly strong. By the time I returned to the hospital, it was already afternoon. Hailey looked at me with curiosity and confusion in her eyes. She said Peter had messaged her, apologizing for using such a low move this time. He even praised her husband, calling me a real talent, and even hinted that I could join his company as CEO if I was interested. I was speechless. Old Wong really was something else. This was clearly a trap dressed as a compliment. If Hailey overthought it and got a thorn in her side, tensions would naturally rise. After a while, I'd probably get fed up and really go work for him. I told Hailey what had just happened, then reassured her that her father was harmless. He had thoughts, but no nerve. Definitely not the type to do anything truly outrageous or unforgivable. 3 days later, she was discharged. The doctor advised that Hailey should rest for at least 2 to 3 weeks. However, a major project she was directly responsible for weighed heavily on her, and she couldn't sleep well after being discharged. Hailey, let me handle this project. You should stay home and rest. Hailey looked at me in slight surprise. This was the first time since our marriage that I'd volunteered for something like this. Maybe it was my decent track record, or perhaps Old Wong's meddling had boosted her confidence in my abilities. After carefully reviewing the project details, I broke out in a cold sweat. This project had too many oddities. It was a sub-project in the city's new town development, meant to build a relocation complex for an old district. The site was on the east side of the city, planned as a huge complex with 21 residential buildings, each 30 stories high. The project divided the 21 buildings, with 3 buildings grouped under each bid, costing roughly 150 million yuan per bid. Though our company specialized in engineering, we'd only ever handled smaller projects worth a few million, maybe up to 20 million. I had no idea how Hailey managed to land such a large project. After all, a project like this could easily collapse financially if not managed well, even potentially ruining US. A vague sense of dread washed over me, a feeling of heart-pounding tension. After all, Hailey's family company was unlikely to win such a bid. Hailey said the project was introduced by an acquaintance she met at a conference a few years ago, a mysterious figure with connections all over the industry. This person claimed to have secured the bid for 15 buildings but lacked the funds, and so needed us to do two things. First, we had to participate as a shadow bidder. Second, given the special nature of the project, we had to post a 15% deposit up front, and we'd also need to help cover the deposit together. If we won, 3 buildings would be subcontracted to us. Hailey met with this influential figure, along with 2 or 3 local officials overseeing the project, and they even inspected the fenced-off site in person. The land was mostly sectioned off, and all permits, project approvals, start reports, etc. were in order, with the advance funds routed to the counterpart's account through a business contract. As for the shadow bidding, we'd simply submit a high bid so that the acquaintance would win. Otherwise, there'd be too few companies to look legitimate. Everything looked perfect, but something felt subtly off to me. Why would this project require such a high deposit? Now, the final deadline for the transfer was approaching, with a 15% deposit totaling over 20 million yuan. In engineering, cash flow is always tight. I visited the project site myself, seeing the blue barricades already in place, some with harmonious society slogans. I checked the government website, and indeed, there was mention of the old district's renovation plans, though no specific location was listed, which wasn't unusual. I got the hotel address of this influential person, hoping to meet this legend in person. At the city's largest 5-star hotel lobby, I finally saw this big shot. At that moment, I could hardly believe my eyes. It was him. I'd seen his photo before, while sorting through my parents' documents. An old associate had told me that this was the person who had gradually led my parents into ruin, and that he was deeply involved in their deaths. I had never fully believed it. How could my confident father fall to such depths, taking my mother down with him in a double suicide? Now, here he was, back in my life. I sprang to my feet, ready to confront him, desperate to uncover the truth about my parents' deaths. Just then, I noticed another familiar face approaching the mystery man, Hailey's former suitor, Tony. Suppressing my confusion, I focused on the scene before me. The two shook hands with a familiarity that spoke volumes, then sat at a nearby table, speaking openly without lowering their voices. "Brother Tony, the net is about to close. You can finally get your revenge. Haha, Mr. Lamb, thank you so much this time. That bitch Hailey thought she could just hit me and get away with it. I'll make sure her entire family is done for." Brother Tony, swift revenge suits a talented young man like you. But getting back at one woman is a small matter. Pushing forward with our project is the real priority. Including Hailey's family, there are 7 families involved. This is the big move that'll help you rise to the top. Haha, I understand. Don't worry, Mr. Lamb. Our project looks just like the real thing. Once the fish are in the net, we'll make our escape. I'm still waiting for you to take me to Amsterdam for some fun. Hearing this, my heart sank. There really was something wrong with that project. Looks like I need to plan my next steps carefully. Once the two of them left the hotel together, I got up to leave. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw another familiar face. Uncle Bame? Rocky, come with me. Uncle Bame gestured for me to be quiet and led me to a guest room. He wasted no time with pleasantries and filled me in on the background. Uncle Bame was my father's good friend who emigrated to Singapore years ago. My father, knowing I wasn't keen on the cutthroat world of business, had established a trust worth $1 billion in Singapore a few years back, with Uncle Bame managing the funds. Last year, my father asked Uncle Bame to bring the money back to the country. Knowing how complicated things could get, Uncle Bame rushed back, only to find that my parents had already passed away. $1 billion was en route, yet my parents left a will stating they went bankrupt and committed suicide. It didn't add up at all. Uncle Bame couldn't contact me and started investigating on his own, eventually tracing the issue here. These people are ruthless and merciless. Their method is simple. Taking advantage of the current craze for building new cities, they entice second-generation heirs and set up fake projects, roping small and medium-sized companies in with various pretexts. The projects promise a bright future, but require massive upfront investments. Many of these companies take on huge debts. Then these people introduce loan sharks to provide funds, making the companies secure loans with collateral. Once the funds are in, the loan sharks demand repayment, leaving these companies penniless, even leading to family ruin. My father wasn't involved initially, but he was a guarantor for a friend and got forced in. He quickly saw through it and planned to report it, but the bastards got wind of it and killed him. They then colluded with the local second-generation heirs to pressure the police into closing the case hastily. Suppressing my fury, I took deep breaths to calm myself. Uncle Bame, these people are about to strike here. I never expected to cross paths with them again. What's going on? Uncle Bame was shocked. I briefly told told Uncle Bame about the Hailey project. Uncle Bame, fate has given us a chance for revenge. Let's settle old scores and new together. Good lad, what's your plan? I'd waited a long time for this day, having run through the plan in my mind countless times. Handling it alone had been challenging, but now, with Uncle Bame, we could attack from two sides. Tony's uncle was a powerful local figure. We couldn't count on the local police, so I asked Uncle Bame to head to the provincial capital to find an old classmate's father, a local police chief known for his integrity and sense of justice. When I first returned, I had thought about approaching him, but it was all too chaotic at the time. Now that things were clearer, it was finally time to ask for his help. As expected, things proceeded smoothly. Uncle Bame was taken directly to the provincial police headquarters, and the case was filed as a joint economic investigation. Meanwhile, I hurried home to discuss transferring funds with Hailey. Since the project hadn't yet reached the stage where funds were actually transferred, I needed to make the payment reel to ensure the evidence was solid, helping Uncle Bame assist the police more effectively. So, that 20 million yuan had to be transferred tonight, and it had to come from Hailey's company to avoid raising suspicion. Hailey, here's the situation. There's some real risk this time. Although I'm confident it's still a scam, so there's some uncertainty. I refrained from mentioning my parents' case, not wanting to cloud her judgment. Rocky, without you, we would have lost this money and our business would be finished. Working with the police is the right thing to do. Besides, we're married. I trust you. Hailey agreed to my plan without hesitation. I held her hand tightly, grateful for the trust she placed in me. After making the transfer, we waited for the police to close in. Unexpectedly, the next day, I received a call from Tony. Well, little miss, remember your big brother Tony? Let me tell you, your Hailey family is finished. That new city project was my setup all along. You think your little company could handle multi-million or billion-dollar deals? That project's a sham. Do you still have cash after that 20 million transfer? You're done for. You dared to hit me. I'll make sure you live in misery. Haha, wait till the debt collectors come for you. But hey, I'll give you one last chance. Come to room 1808 at XX Hotel, beg your dear big brother, and I might let you share my bed. Oh, I heard you're pregnant. I've never been with a pregnant woman before. Come on, want to save your family? Come beg me. Ha ha ha. A burst of maniacal laughter came through the phone. Bang! There was a sound like the door being kicked open. Who are you? What team are you with? I'm Tony. How dare you arrest me? My uncle is Bame. The line went dead. Hailey and I exchanged a satisfied smile. Everything went according to plan. I had asked Uncle Bame to suggest to the police that Tony would be the easiest lead, and it worked better than expected. A week later, Uncle Bame brought us several pieces of news. With solid evidence, the case was proceeding unusually smoothly. Hailey's company's funds had already been prioritized for return. It was confirmed that my parents had been pushed off a building and their wills had been forged afterward. The case involved huge amounts of money and multiple lives, so heavy sentences were inevitable. Seeing justice finally done, I felt a wave of sorrow. If only my parents could see this, they would be at peace. Because of Uncle Bame's involvement, my identity had become fully exposed. Hailey seemed a bit overwhelmed and pulled me aside when she found a moment. Are you going to leave? Huh? I couldn't help but smile. I know you didn't really choose to be with me. I thought you were just an ordinary guy, and I did some foolish things. If you want to leave now, I won't stop you. What foolish things? Like getting me drunk and making me your live-in husband? Hailey's face turned red as I gently kissed her forehead. You knew? Bringing the household registration on a trip, you were too well prepared. Ah, Hailey's face turned even redder. I wrapped my arms around her. Actually, I always had feelings for you. You hinted at it before. But after my parents' passing, I was too overwhelmed to think I deserved you. It was only when you took that first step that I realized I had someone beside me who truly loved me and was willing to sacrifice for me. I almost lost you because I was running away. My parents set up the trust hoping I'd live a meaningful life. Once, I thought I was clever and took things for granted. Then I was consumed by grief and just wanted to hide. Now, I want to face everything with you and work together. And you still said you wanted to leave. So mean. Hailey cried, pounding my chest. Silly girl, aren't we going for the prenatal checkup today? Did you forget? How did it go, Hailey? Seeing Hailey coming out of the ultrasound room, she seemed a little down. Her parents and I quickly rushed over. The doctor said there's a fetal heartbeat and buds. But what? But there are two. I'm having twins. In that moment, we ignored the strange looks around us and cheered together. I was going to be the father of two. I held Hailey close and gave her a firm kiss. Rocky, you'd better think of a good name. But one of them must take Hailey's last name. Hailey's father's voice chimed in. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.